Intern at TCS Pace. Today we are at the TCS office in Amsterdam at the Zuidas. I would like to welcome you to join me for the launch event of TCS Pace in Europe and the official opening of the TCS Paceport. We have a lot on our program today and it's a bit chilly outside, so please join me while we go up to the 8th floor. Here we are. Welcome at TCS Paceport Amsterdam. Please come in and enjoy.
Auch besonders handeln.
Renewable energy, green jobs, clean air to breathe and fresh water to drink.
A world where we use digital technologies to build the healthier, a greener society. Global warming.
It's still there.
Population enlarges.
Het coronavirus.
The circular economy is the future of our economy.
If we act now, we can yet put it right.
We can do this. We have the science, we have the technology.
The pace of innovation, I'd say, is as fast today as it's ever been in that space.
It gives Europe a unique opportunity to lead, not just within Europe, but in the world.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome from Amsterdam. And good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to you all, and welcome to the virtual launch of TCS Pace and the official inauguration of TCS Paceport in Amsterdam. And we're having an amazing program prepared for you, but first, I'd like to know you all a bit better. I have an iPad with me, and I already see people coming in and saying how much they're looking forward to it. But on this iPad, you are also able to share your location with us. So please feel free to do so we can see where people are joining in from. My name is Tim Wagemakers and I'm the MC for today and your host. I already see people coming in from Spain. I see people coming in from Sweden, Finland, a lot from the Netherlands, of course, which doesn't strike me as odd. I see people from India, I see people from Indonesia. So, well, I think we all know it's been a crazy year. It's been a year of distance, but I hope in this sense we can also feel a bit closer together on this virtual and hybrid event. I'm really happy to be able to work together with TCS today and delighted that they asked me to moderate this event. Since I work as a journalist interested in innovation, and I think this session will show how innovation can help us solve global issues that we deal with. So this is why I'm keen to get started here from the TCS Paceport studio in Amsterdam, the first European innovation hub powered by TCS Pace. And I'm honored to be surrounded by you virtually and in person, and we have some fascinating guests today. But before I start the introduction, some quick housekeeping. You all are watching this through a platform, and you will see the TCS Pace Basecamp, which is actually our venue, and you can navigate around the Basecamp using your mouse by clicking on different areas. You'll see 3 active areas and 2 inactive areas. I mean, one of the active areas is, of course, the live stream you are watching this from. Then there's a content hub where you can have a scroll through all the exciting content that's available for you to watch or download anytime on what TCS does, how they work, and emerging innovations. And then there's also the virtual tour, and I can really recommend that, where you can experience TCS Pace from behind your screen until we can hopefully soon welcome you physically again. And please note, the platform is optimized for desktop and tablets and do not use Internet Explorer. And the event timings on the platform are default to your local time zone. One more thing, on the top of your screen, you will see a set of icons from which you can edit your profile or start a one-to-one message with another participant and explore today's program. And we also have a live help desk if you think that went a bit too fast. If you're experiencing any issues, please click on the help desk icon and the team will assist you. As we are live streaming live from Amsterdam today, if we experience technical glitches, please bear with us. We will do our best to fix things and quickly and be back. But for now, let's enjoy today's show. I think we've seen in that first video today on how we can all work together to achieve a greener and more sustainable future. And I think that's the focus of today's program, in which we not only focus on innovation, but also on a new brand, which is the TCS Sustainathon initiative, which is a hackathon, but then for sustainability. And it's also why I'm delighted to speak later with Diederik Samsom, working on the Green Deal for the European Commission, who can tell us all about his work, what he's doing there. But before we dive into the introduction of our esteemed guests, we will start the program with a few introductions by TCS Managing Director Rajesh Gopinathan, by the Head of Europe, Sapta, after which I'll speak with Diederik Samsom, as I said, the Head of Cabinet of Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans. And this will all be in the run-up to the official launch moment for Paceport Amsterdam. And we shall then begin the official launch ceremony, and this will be followed by the second part of the program with a keynote by Peter Hinssen. I'm really looking forward to that. It's about the never normal, so you can already think about your association with that word. And we have a special edition of the TCS Pace Talk, in which we also like you to participate. And I see so many people already joining us on the chat, so I see many people know how it works, but you can ask your questions there also. All right, having said all that, I would now like to welcome my co-host for this first half of the show, Josu de Vasia, who is head of TCS Netherlands. Josu, welcome. Could you please tell us a bit more about where we are and give us another welcome?
Sure. Thank you, Tim, for being the host for this event. It's a very special day for all of us at TCS. And I'm really delighted that we have quite a lot of special guests who have joined us here in this event. We have a lot of dignitaries from the European Commission, embassies, our customers, partner ecosystems, academia, and of course, the TCS global leadership. And it is also quite a privilege that nearly 30 years after we started our operations here in Netherlands, that TCS is kicking off the TCS Pace philosophy in Europe by launching this TCS Paceport here in Amsterdam. And when you look at this location, why TCS chose Amsterdam and specifically in this country of Netherlands, it is so much resonating with the DNA of this country that it is so welcoming, it is open, it is diverse, it creates an entrepreneurial mindset, and it really encourages a startup culture. And this is what the TCS Paceport is all about. And I'm really excited to show all the guests about what we have in store for today. And for that, it's my honor and privilege to welcome on screen our CEO and Managing Director, Mr. Rajesh Gopinathan. Rajesh, over to you.
Thank you, Joshua. And thank you all for taking time out to join us today at the inauguration of TCS Pace and the Paceport in Amsterdam. The events of last year has impacted all of us profoundly and will shape our thoughts and actions for many years to come. As we gather today, I want to highlight three aspects of the year gone by that I believe are significant in the context of the TCS. First of all is solidarity. Whether it be the solidarity that our teams displayed standing shoulder to shoulder and dealing with the many challenges that they individually faced, or the solidarity that we as organizations displayed in seeking out and offering help to each other to deal with the immediacies and the unexpected challenges that the year threw upon us. This solidarity reinforces the foundation of shared values that we have and provides us the confidence of our ongoing relationship and will light the journey together for many years. The second aspect that I believe is very relevant in today's context is resilience. All of us, I'm sure, as we reflect back, were surprised by the extent of resilience on display, both resilience of the human spirit as well as the resilience of our teams and of our organizations in evolving very seamlessly, very dynamically to deal with the challenges and coming up with new operating models, or even the resilience of our own business models in being able to adapt to an ever-changing environment. And finally, the aspect that stands out is our reliance on innovation as the engine that powers the way forward. The pandemic, while its impact continues and is huge, has been tamed in many ways by our innovativeness, both on the medical front as well as on the economic front in dealing with the challenges that it posed. And this reliance on innovation as a fundamental aspect of our way forward is something that I'm sure none of us will ever go back on. So these three aspects, solidarity, resilience, and innovation, all come together very beautifully in what we're trying to achieve here with the launch of TCS Pace and the TCS Paceport in Amsterdam. TCS Pace is our commitment to leverage innovation and collective knowledge in our pursuit of greater futures for all our stakeholders. And the Paceport provides that physical fulcrum where we can bring together all stakeholders, whether it be our organizations or our extended ecosystem of partners from startup universe, from academia, from other thought leaders, where we can together work on that shared belief, which powers any new invention, which powers any new discovery, and which powers all forms of growth going forward. And we believe that this ability to have shared beliefs, this ability to collaborate together, this ability to collectively leverage our knowledge together to create greater futures is the fundamental foundation of continued success for all of us. And Paceport will hopefully provide that environment and that philosophy that will hold it together. We are excited by the design of Paceport as a portal into a larger ecosystem of what we call our innovation network, which will span Europe, as well as will link into the larger TCS global network, which is constantly expanding to link in with other similar networks that our partners have created and are continuously investing in. We think that this ability to bring our teams together, to give both exposure and an ability to collaborate seamlessly will be the engine that drives our collective futures. So I'm very excited about being at the start of this journey. And I want to thank you all once again for marking this moment along with us and looking forward to many exciting things that we will do together at this Paceport and in other locations that we will inaugurate in future. Thank you, and over to you, Joshua.
Thank you, Rajesh, for that message. I think TCS Pace has a commitment to leverage innovation and our collective knowledge to build greater futures. I think those are key words that we need to bear in our hearts for the next sessions. And now I would like to ask someone who embodies that, I think, the head of Europe for TCS, Sapta, to join us virtually. Hi, Sapta. Welcome to the studio and our virtual audience. May I ask you to join me in welcoming everyone and saying a few words?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of TCS Pace in Europe. Of course, it has been a very testing time with the prolonged pandemic. Like Rajesh mentioned, it is heartening to see the solidarity shown by our customers and the resilience of our teams. Thank you very much for that. With technology at the heart of business, for us in tech, we see a big responsibility to sustain, grow, and transform. We have all stood together to fulfill this responsibility thus far, and I'm sure we'll work together and come out stronger. If technology is at the heart of business, innovation is at the heart of technology. But innovation needs to be done with a purpose. Today, I would like to highlight an important, pervasive purpose which is sustainability. At TCS, we believe that sustainability is a purpose that can be enabled through innovation. At TCS in Europe, we have made it a key priority to play a defining role in the sustainability agenda. And towards that, we have identified 5 actions which we believe need to be embedded in the sustainability agenda of organizations and societies. The 5 actions that we have articulated are putting youth front and center, leveraging the power of technology and innovation, upskilling talent with digital skills, redefining business models, and making progress on sustainability every day. Let me just highlight 2 of them to bring out the sustainability agenda. First is putting youth front and center. We believe that we need to make the young talent an active part of our sustainability decisions. At TCS, we are putting young people at the heart of our sustainability decision making by inviting them to contribute actively in our sustainability councils we have established for Europe and for all the countries that we have in Europe. The second area that we need to bring to the heart of the sustainability agenda is talent renewal. As we all have heard, more than 1 billion jobs are likely to be transformed by technology over the next decade. With close to about 500,000 employees in TCS spread across 50 countries, at TCS, we continuously reskill and upskill at scale and speed using our learning platforms and ecosystems. We believe that organizations and societies need to put talent renewal and digital skills at the heart of the sustainability agenda. This is not just to reskill the current talent, but it's also to build talent up, ground up. And towards that, TCS Pace is one of the platforms we use to reskill and upskill our talent. The TCS Paceports we use to connect talent with education. And for example, our partnership with the Nine Road Business University aims to shape a generation of business leaders. At TCS, we have also successfully scaled a program called Go IT, a youth training program for school children designed to build long-term technology skills and problem-solving abilities. Such programs have the potential to build talent at scale and enable a talent renewal. And coming to the other aspect of sustainability in Europe, on December 11, 2019, the European Commission presented the European Green Deal with a goal to reconcile the economy with our planet. We are pleased to have one of the main architects behind this landmark deal, Mr. Diederik Samsom, with us. I'm sure he's going to talk more about that. We also heard, as part of our launch today, we'll be announcing a Europe-wide Sustainathon, a twist on the traditional hackathons that we are all familiar with in the tech world. It is entitled the Balancing Act, with the aim to trigger, develop, and execute innovative ideas that contribute to solving sustainability challenges in Europe and across the world. To conclude, I would like to invite discussion, collaboration, and actions to put technology at the heart of business, innovation at the heart of technology, and more importantly, to leverage innovation, youth, and talent and digital skills at the heart of sustainability agenda. We look forward to welcoming you to our Paceport in Amsterdam and other innovation centers that we have in Europe and across the world, both virtually and in person. Thank you very much. I now hand you back to the studio to Tim.
Thanks so much, Sapta, for those words. There were many things in there, and I think we can discuss them with Head of Cabinet of Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans, Diederik Samsom. Nice to have you with us, Mr. Samsom. If you listen to the story of Sapta, there are so many words in there. The goal is we want the Green Deal as a means to get to Europe being climate neutral. And in that aspect, there are many words. Collaboration, there's innovation, there is the power of talent and digital skills. What were your main thoughts when you were listening to that, as being one of the main architects of that Green Deal?
My main thoughts were we need you, those 3 words, because if you look at the challenge of the Green Deal, making Europe climate neutral before 2050, and that actually not only climate neutral, but also fully circular and zero pollution. And those are challenges that are intertwined, but they all need new innovation. We need a young generation and we need innovation. We've seen what innovation can bring to us, especially in the last decade. That has been phenomenal in terms of bringing the cost of solar panels down, putting offshore wind as a viable alternative for fossil fuels, bringing electrical cars to consumers. But that's only the start of it. And we already know that for getting ourselves to 2050 and the climate neutrality goal, 50% of the technology that we need for that needs to be invented right now or as soon as possible. So that's I think, your challenge. Our challenge as policymakers and politicians is to make the ground for that, to create an enabling environment for those innovations to arise and then to be implemented, which is the hardest part of it, as any innovator knows. Bridging the valley of death from something that is beautiful in the laboratory to something that is working in real life with real people and real problems. So that's basically where I think your added value is desperately needed.
Yeah, because I think when you said the words, we need to invent still, sometimes people are under the impression that it's all coming down to implementation now. You have policymakers and they need to apply guidelines, they need to apply regulations or enhance or stimulate things. But you're saying we're still in the process. We discuss, we collaborate, but we need to invent also. What are you most curious about in the sense that you think that we need that kind of energy, that innovative energy, to be able to reach our goals?
Well, let me give you a few examples of, because I can understand that a lot of people think that it's down to implementation. And to be honest, 50% of it is down to implementation. We already got to a point where we can solve half of our problem with the current technology that is on the table. And actually, until 2030, most of that is about implementation. But after 2030, we have a whole trajectory. We have 2 decades left in order to solve our problem, in order to be able to look our children right into the eye and tell them that we provided them with a livable planet. And for those innovations, and as I said, let me give you a few examples. Solid-state batteries. We need the next generation of battery technology. The current one brings a car about 400 kilometers, maybe 500 if you have a very big car. But we need to go beyond that. And not only for cars, we need those batteries for heavy trucking, maybe for flying even. Unimaginable only 5 years ago, but a realistic option right now, thanks to the innovation that brought us to the point where we are. But we need to go further than that. Chemical recycling is another one. And the full recycling of our plastic into new plastic, instead of downcycling it up to the point where it ends up into the ocean. We need to stop that linear value chain down to zero. We need to get to a full circular economy, and the innovations for that are needed are beyond my imagination.
That's
so
up to us.
A new generation.
Yeah. Because actually, if you look at TCS Pace, that's a method, and we can use that all across Europe. And then we have a port in Amsterdam, TCS Paceport, which kind of brings some things physically together. And actually, when I hear you talk, it kind of aligns with that. You can look at your numbers for the next year. You can look at, but you make it grand, and I think rightfully so. We have to look our children in the eyes with how we leave the planet behind. And actually, I think we need more space, right, to experiment, but also we're kind of in a hurry to upscale it and to make sure that it's viable. In that sense, are you positive with the track we're on right now?
I'm positive about the momentum that we have. I wouldn't call it a track yet, but we're starting that track, and hopefully in a few years' time we will see that. Because what needs to happen in the next 5 years is, we can't solve the whole problem in 5 years, but what we can do is put Europe on an irrevocable pathway towards the end, towards the finish line. And that needs to happen in the next 5 years with investments. And we have Next Generation EU and the recovery fund from the corona crash that the whole world and also Europe endured. That is a 750 billion euro package. Lots of that, actually, the bulk of that money will be invested in green technology, in green innovations, in making our economy sustainable. And that is an enormous opportunity, as I said, momentum for also the innovative world, the innovative community, to join that endeavor towards a better future.
So actually, if I listen to you, the European Commission, the word is collaboration. You're looking at us to come up with the ideas. In what sense are the doors open? In what sense will you be following as a European Commission what comes out of these? Well, for example, we have a sustainable fund that's going to start. I hope it might invent some of the things that you are looking for. What's the next step then? How are the lines open?
Multiple lines, obviously financial. I mean, our Horizon program is vamped up towards, well, basically towards gearing most of that money to sustainability. Part of that also to curing cancer, which is also a very important goal for our future, obviously. But 80% of the money for innovation that we have set, and that's 100 billion in total in the next 7 years, is for creating new of financing new research on sustainable solutions. So that's one door. But the other door is obviously, let's say, more receiving, on the receiving end of the room, which is when there are innovations that are happening, the take-up of that needs to be sped up. We are notoriously bad, if I may be so frank and blunt, we are notoriously bad in picking up the right innovations and scaling them up to mass production. With a few exceptions, and I mentioned offshore wind as one of them. But we see most of that happening outside of Europe, and we need to learn to do that within Europe. And I'm looking at you and TCS and others to learn us how to do that. We are open to learn and to take up the solutions in order to speed up the implementation.
Josu de Vazia, sitting next to me, head of TCS Netherlands. If you hear that, we're building an ecosystem, right? We're building something where inventions or things we examine become viable and become linked to the right persons, be it policymakers, be it academia, be it enterprises. How do you listen to the story of Diederik Samsom?
I think it's just brilliant. What Diederik Samsom just spoke was just brilliant. And I think it resonates so very well to the philosophy of TCS Pace. And we are really keen to contribute in the right way to the Green Deal, and which Diederik Samsom himself is personally leading. So I think it's just music to my ears.
Yes. And then the more excited to be in Amsterdam. Diederik Samsom, does it make you a bit proud that the TCS Paceport is launching in Amsterdam, actually?
I should be completely unbiased and impartial in that, but yes.
Yeah. And the Sustainable Fund, we hope to. Would it be an interesting method also to use for you as the European Commission, the sort of PACE method where in a few days you examine, you scale up and you work together? Because I think it's a kind of a bubble you get in with immediate results afterwards.
Yeah, it's attractive. And actually, indeed, it's tempting to say, well, let's implement that also for policy making or something like that we do in the Berlaymont building where I'm sitting right now. But I have to be frank, making policy is a different machine. It's a different beast, it's a different animal. Don't try this at home, I would say. But I'm excited about, I mean, I'm also an engineer. I worked in the field of innovation for a while, looking for opportunities in terms of venture capital and getting that to the market. And your method, the hackathon method, or however you want to frame it, creating a pressure cooker in order to come up with solutions that are not able in a normal environment is very exciting. And I hope it will enable you and therefore us to create a better world.
To conclude, there's a lot to be done, and I hope that you will be able to visit us soon and maybe dive into a short TCS Pace method yourself. For now, do you have one last message that you would like to say to us from the European Commission?
Well, the one message that I have is for especially the young generation, and I consider all of you the young generation. The mentality of that is absolutely amazing in terms of its purpose. It is a new generation that really is, having a mission in life to make the world a better place. And I must be frank, our generation did have less of that. So my message to you is keep up that mentality, implement it in your daily work, such as innovation, and then I'm optimistic about the future.
Well, and actually your words in the last 10 minutes made us optimistic too. I want to thank you a lot for being with us, Mr. Diederik Samsom. And I think with this inspiring words from Diederik Samsom, it is a perfect moment to officially launch TCS Pace in Europe. Yeah, because actually there is a big red button here, and I would like to invite you all at home and also Diederik Samsom, Rajesh and Sapta to help us launch TCS Pace and officially open TCS Paceport in Amsterdam. I'd like to invite Josu to walk to the button there, and we can all physically help, because on your screen, if it's all right, you will see a red button, and we kind of need your help also, because otherwise we won't open the TCS Pace method, and that would be quite a shame. So don't push it yet, as we will do this together. But I hope you see it right now. And then Josu, maybe this is the moment. Without further ado, let's launch TCS Pace and open TCS Paceport. So if you also press your button, because we're not there yet, we need to press it. And then I see the bar launching. Yeah. We're almost getting there. I think it's working, that's good.
Hey, welcome Riane.
Hello Lily, thanks so much for having me today.
Looking forward to host you today.
Exciting.
Please join.
So we're of course here today at the launch of the TCS Paceport in Amsterdam. But could you explain a bit more about what the concept of TCS Pace means, and more importantly, what it means to your customers?
In today's thriving world, our customers need to reinvent themselves again and again, and this pandemic has only added to the fuel. TCS Pace is designed to help businesses accelerate their transformation journey, and we do this across industries.
Accelerating transformation sounds very exciting, but also very futuristic. But how do we actually accelerate these transformations, and how do you work with customers?
We have created a structured approach. We call it as Agile Innovation at Scale model. With this model, we partner with our customers to build an inspiring future vision and work backwards to bring it to life.
So do you have a couple of examples for us?
Let me take an example of banking. When as a customer, you need a mortgage, wouldn't it be nice that your bank is not only able to provide you with a mortgage in no time without asking you tons of documents, but also help you find your dream home and also connect you with an ecosystem that makes your experience pleasant when you move into your new house. That is what I mean by envisioning future.
How do you put theory to practice? How do you bring this vision alive?
While envisioning the future, customers are keen to understand what is happening in the industry. How is technology evolving? How do they get inspired from what their peers are doing within their industry as well as across industry? Can they tap into startup ecosystem? TCS Pace is a great platform to bring all of that together so that they can envision the future. Let me explain how it happens. Please join me in the Innovation Showcase.
Sounds good.
Now we have built the future vision. Bringing this vision to life is going to be an incremental and iterative process. And typically, this process involves 4 steps. Step 1 is get the best ideas on table and prioritize them. Step 2, prototype these ideas so that you are able to validate your assumptions before you make expensive commitments. Step 3 is build them at speed by focusing on what really matters to your customer, because time to market is important. And step 4, focus on driving adoption once you have taken the product to market, because that is what will give you the right platform to scale. Now to take these 4 steps, we have designed an immersive and high energy approach that helps you produce outcomes at an accelerated pace. And we call this approach Pace Sprints.
So are there any specific technologies that you focus on?
TCS Pace platform is designed to make emerging technologies accessible to our customers. Our customers should be able to experiment with these technologies, learn from it before they make expensive commitments. And what we have observed is it is never one technology that you use. You need to create a fusion of technologies to be able to build the right product or a service. And making all of that accessible to our customers is what we do with TCS Pace.
Yeah, well done to Rianne and Lalit for showing us all around and taking us on the TCS Pace journey. I hope you all found it useful. I certainly did. I'd like to thank Josu de Vasia once again for being my co-host in the first part of the show. I see congratulations pouring in on the chat. So people are excited that we've launched it finally. And we're going to continue with our next part of the program, the next keynote speaker. And personally, I'm really looking forward to his talk because it's Peter Hinssen. But before we do that, we have a short video message to show you from Kriti and Cecile from TCS Leadership, who are excited to share their perspectives on how innovation is driving their respective industries and the role TCS Pace can play in helping organizations achieve their goals. So let's watch that.
The manufacturing and utilities industry is witnessing disruptions at scale through rapid digitalization, focus on sustainability, and move to connected ecosystems. Sustainability, for example, is leading to next-generation electrification technologies in auto and renewables in utilities. Similarly, neural supply chains is helping establish connected ecosystems. The TCS Paceport at Amsterdam will be the innovation hub for our customers in Europe, where we will bring in the cross-industry perspective to design and build new business models and purpose-led ecosystems. Our innovative solutions like the Smart Factory and the Electricity Value Chain Studio will give the momentum, and our partnerships with academia and startups will further drive collaborative innovation.
Hi. In this age of digital disruption, customers' expectations are changing very fast. So companies need to innovate constantly to meet this ever-increasing customers' expectation. At TCS Paceport Amsterdam, we aspire to help our customers in accelerating their innovation cycle. We offer a greenfield innovation setting for customers to ideate, collaborate, and create cutting-edge solutions for real-world business problems. Here, we enable rapid experimentation and co-creation by leveraging TCS assets and coin partnerships.
Yeah, and these are just two examples of how TCS Pace can help you in your respective business. And it's great to see how TCS Pace is supported globally. Right now, we turn to Peter Hinssen. But first, and we'll fill in later what Peter Hinssen means with that, but there's a question for you to answer in the poll. You'll see that on your screen. What does the never normal mean to you? If you could describe the never normal in one word, what would it be? That's the question we'd like to pose you. As we all imagine, it has been a year, I think, that we've all seen how things can change and how it can impact people. But what does it mean? A new normal, old normal? Peter Hinssen is talking about a never normal. And while you fill this question in, it's time to listen to a great speaker does. He is a renowned keynote speaker, author, and serial entrepreneur. He's one of the most sought-after thought leaders on radical innovation, leadership, and the impact of all things digital on society and business. He lectures at various business schools, such as London Business School and MIT in Boston. He has founded NextWorks to help organizations kickstart their innovation. And please join me in listening to Peter Hinssen and his keynote on thriving in the never normal.
I'm extremely pleased to be here at the virtual launch event of TCS Pace in Europe and the official opening of TCS Paceport in Amsterdam. And the reason is, I think it fits wonderfully with, I think, what we need to do in the world of technology is to move beyond the new normal. The New Normal is the title of a book that I wrote exactly 10 years ago about what happens in the world where digital stops being special and just becomes normal. And that transition is exactly what we've observed in the last decade. We are now constantly connected. We're never offline. We are truly in that new normal. And thank God we had that new normal in the very strange episode of the last 12 months. Something that seemed distant and far away changed all of our lives. And I'm a bit of a sci-fi enthusiast. The last year reminded me very much of one of my favorite sci-fi movies, a classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still. And I think what we encountered, honestly, was not the day, not the week, not the quarter. It was basically the year that the Earth stood still. We saw things, we saw scenes that we never thought we would ever see in our lifetime. And it was a collective displacement. I mean, it happened, the entire globe around. And what I find fascinating is that for many companies, it was also the culmination of a decade of the new normal, in the sense that I think 2020 was the great digital stress test. We had to figure out if we could still survive in a world where technology, digital, was basically our only option. I mean, look at lockdown. I don't know how you survived lockdown, but in our house with 2 teenage kids, there was a perfect correlation between the quality of the Wi-Fi signal in our house and my appreciation as a father. If the Wi-Fi was good, that was okay. But if there was just a tiny interruption, just a little hiccup in their YouTube or TikTok stream, they openly started to question if I ever got a degree in computer science. And it wasn't just lockdown. In almost every type of exit scenario, we saw that technology was playing an ever-increasing role. I love this example in Singapore where a robot dog was patrolling a park to see if people were actually respecting social distancing or not. I mean, who could have imagined that this would even be a possibility just a mere 12 months ago? So we have entered into this new normal, and most companies passed the test. Not everybody got an A+, but most companies actually did okay. And I think what is interesting is that, we started to fully realize that digital wasn't just a cherry on the cake anymore. For many companies, many markets, it was the cake. And I think we're now arriving in what I call a blue pill, red pill moment. Ever since I wrote that book, Digital is the New Normal, some people have been asking me, so what's the new normal? What's the next new normal? But I also meet a lot of people who actually miss the old normal. And especially now in that BC-AC changeover, before Corona, after Corona, people are beginning to wonder, when are we going to go back to the old normal? Well, first of all, it might take a little longer than we think. And second of all, I think this is the core question. Maybe the old normal doesn't exist anymore. We can't go back to the old normal because I think we have to prepare ourselves for more changes. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to have to figure out how we're going to thrive in a world with more and more of these seismic shocks. And some of these seismic shocks will certainly still be technological in nature. I mean, it's not because digital is done that we can say, done. No, I mean, we're just getting started. If you look at the combination of technologies, augmented and virtual reality, the real power of big data, artificial intelligence, massive automation, that is a powerful cocktail that goes beyond the new normal and I think is going to generate even more technological seismic shocks. But that's not it. I mean, we're now in the middle of a biological seismic shock that is far from over. But look at the big concern we had before COVID, the environment, the planet. Think about ecological seismic shocks. This is a scene from Blade Runner 2049, one of my favorite movies. This is San Francisco just after last summer. I mean, the forest fires created this. Just recently, we had Texas freezing over with a complete collapse of the power grid and enormous consequences, both economically and personally. Even the rising geopolitical tensions that we've seen, a trade war between the US and China that is now escalating into a full-blown technological Cold War. My conclusion is very simple. The world isn't getting more orderly. The world is actually getting more disorderly. But we should not be afraid of that. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, we should see this as a set of opportunities because every single one of those seismic shocks actually triggers things. They set things in motion. They create systemic shifts. Look, for example, at consumer behavior. This was already greatly altered as a result of digital becoming normal. We can now analyze a consumer and detect patterns and predict better than ever before. But then COVID came along the second seismic shock, and this was the acceleration of consumer behavior. More fundamentally, what we're going to see is that how companies make money, their operating and business models, is going to be more volatile in this changing world. We're going to see enormous swings when it comes to capacity and resources necessary to implement our strategy, and probably also enormous volatility when it comes to financial performance. But one thing is clear, we're going to see more opportunities for disruption. We're going to move beyond digital as we're going to apply disruption in markets like food or agriculture or healthcare or energy. And I get excited by this because it will be very naive to hope that we're going to go back to a world of, calmness and stability. I think we're really entering that never normal. The last couple of years, it was fashionable to talk about these 4 letters to describe that: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And I don't like these 4 words, but it would be very naive to hope that we're going to just go back to a world of stability, certainty, simplicity, and clarity. We're going to see that little things globally can have a huge impact, and that's exactly what I call the never normal. Now, I get excited by this, but we need to understand how to thrive in that never normal. And that's why I love what TCS is now doing. I think the PACE methodology is a way to actually help companies deal with that never normal. But we have to dig a little deeper. What are the characteristics of that never normal? One of the characteristics is that the world is getting more and more fluid, super fluid. Look at, for example, how work dynamics changed in just the last 12 months. I mean, remote working became normal. If we went back to the office, it wasn't the same, and it wasn't easy. I love this Fisher-Price work-from-home playset, including video conference material, crying babies, and wine bottles. But it's part of that bigger societal way of dealing with the bubble economy. This is the Berliner Philharmonic. Not easy to be profitable in a setting like this. But I love this Dutch example. I mean, the Dutch love their greenhouses, where restaurant owners would put greenhouses in front of their restaurants for people to enjoy a corona-proof meal. Stephen Hawking nailed it when he said, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. And that's exactly what we will need in that never normal. It's naive to hope that you can just snap back to the old normal, but see this as an opportunity to lock on and do a step change. The second characteristic is that in this never normal world, nobody seems to be staying in their lane anymore. Linear is out. Just before Corona, we had Sony, that we know from making televisions, that introduced us to their vision of a car. Sony, who makes TVs, said, we're going to build a car. And at the same time that we had a TV producer building a car, we had Toyota, a car manufacturer, providing us with a glimpse of what they called the woven city, a city that they're building in Japan, where, it's their vision of mobility, where cars don't even function anymore. How crazy is that? You have a TV company making cars, you have a car company thinking about a world without cars. Nobody stays in their lane. My favorite example is actually in China. Ping An, the largest insurance company in the world, is reinventing itself as a healthcare platform provider. Linear is out. The third characteristic is that I don't think we actually live in the digital age. We live in the age of networks, where everything is connected to everything. We live in a hyper-connected environment. And the last element here is that the world is actually accelerating. We see ultra speed. And of course, the last 12 months was, a sample of that. I mean, it was business at the speed of the never normal. I love what Charles Dickens wrote as the opening sentence of A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times and the worst of times at the same time. And the pandemic showed that. We had winners and losers. This is probably one of the most hallucinating graphs of the last 12 months. The market value of Zoom compared to the combined market value of 7 of the largest airlines added up. And Zoom was worth more. And the reason is very simple. We stopped flying. This is flight patterns in Europe, March of 2019, March of 2020. And if we stop flying, then you see the ripple effect of a connected economy. I mean, we stop flying, Airbus, is not going to sell as many planes. They scrap 15,000 jobs. They won't order as many engines. Rolls-Royce scraps 9,000 jobs. We stop flying. We don't need rental cars. Hertz goes out of business. Clearly the worst of times. And then the best of times. We massively started to shop online. Huge shift in consumer behavior. Enormous boost in e-commerce. Enormous boost in logistics. So if you understand that, you can clearly see that this never normal world where nonlinear, superfluid, hyperconnected, and ultra speed becomes normal, this is filled with opportunities, but we have to grasp them. It is very important to pick up the right signals, to interpret them, because they're going to be coming faster. As a matter of fact, I love that roller coaster idea, and it was beautifully summarized in that wonderful quote by Hemingway. Hemingway went bankrupt, and when he went bankrupt, a journalist interviewed him and said, "Mr. Hemingway, how did you go bankrupt?" And he said, "Well, in two ways. Gradually and then suddenly. Very, very slowly and then boom, all of a sudden." And this is exactly the patterns that we need to interpret in the never normal. Look at non-food retail. I mean, certainly in the US, it was an absolute disaster. It was one bankruptcy after another, one store closure after another, one Chapter 11 after another. It was truly the retail apocalypse. H&M, for example, has closed hundreds of stores globally, never to be reopened. But that gradually and suddenly can also work in the other direction. One of my favorite examples is L'Oreal, global cosmetics company, that said we had wild ambitions to do 20% of our business online in 3 years, and we did it in 8 weeks. H&M closed hundreds of stores. IKEA opened up more stores than ever before, but they're different. They're adapted to that changing consumer in the never normal. So this is crucial. It's a roller coaster ride. This never normal that we're now about to embark on is going to be a decade with more technology disruption, more changes in consumer behavior, more volatility in markets, and more swings in operating models. But you can use this to your advantage. Many companies in the last 12 months thought about, how do we brace ourselves for this? How can we become robust? And robust is the ability to keep operating even in times of difficulty. But more important is resilience, the capability to bounce back and even to bounce forward, to take advantage of this never normal. And that's what we will need to do in that roller coaster ride. And that brings me to a fundamental idea, which I call the day after tomorrow. And I think it's very much in line with the TCS Pace philosophy. But think about this. How much time do you as leaders spend on today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow? And what is today? Well, it's the hundreds of emails you get and the dozens of Zoom calls you're in. What is tomorrow? Traditionally, next year's budget. And then there's the day after tomorrow, new ideas, new concepts, new business models that could fundamentally change the rule of the game. Now think about this. How much time do you spend on today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow? Many people say 70, 20, 10. Reality, in many cases, is 93, 7, and 0. And the problem is value. Yes, today is important, tomorrow even more, but the day after tomorrow becomes crucial if you want to reinvent yourself for that never normal. Now, I love this model. For some companies, it's actually not even complete. There's this big, ugly red square with negative energy and value that is the shit of yesterday we have to clean up. And this is exactly what I mean. I love this painting by Magritte, who is a famous Belgian surrealist painter. And how can you interpret the egg and figure out what that bird of the day after tomorrow is going to be? You need some sort of a guidance to actually do that. And I think this is where TCS Pace comes in really, really nicely. It's, I think, an opportunity for companies to reinvent themselves. And this aligns very much with the latest book that I wrote, which was called The Phoenix and the Unicorn. The last couple of years, it was fashionable to talk about the unicorns, the new kids on the block, traditional, markets that were being disturbed by new entrants that grew very quickly and had no shit of yesterday. Every conference you went to, it was Airbnb and Uber, and you could see people in the audience thinking, yeah, that's nice, but we're not Airbnb. Even Airbnb suffered in the last 12 months. The CEO said, well, it took us 12 years to build, we almost lost it in 6 weeks. I think after a decade of applauding the unicorns, it's now time for the phoenixes, traditional companies capable of reinventing themselves. Look, for example, at the world of retail. We know who the big unicorn is. Amazon single-handedly changed the fate of retail. But a couple of years ago, I had a chance to visit the complete other side, Walmart, the biggest traditional retailer in the world. 2.5 million employees, 5,000 supermarkets in the US alone. And they're an excellent example of a phoenix. I mean, I love this example where, the Walmart in-home shopping app, where you buy something online, a Walmart associate comes to your house, can unlock your smart door, and then, enter your house, put the stuff inside, and even put the stuff that needs to be refrigerated in your refrigerator to keep it fresh. I love this. Some people think, wow, this is really cool. Some people say, I don't want a complete strange human being in my house. Fine, we'll send a driverless car, and a robot can actually do a very similar type of functional offering. I love this example of a traditional company reinventing itself. And of course, it's a lot more difficult to do that. I love this visual. It's easy to start from scratch. It's a lot more difficult to reinvent yourself. But in that roller coaster ride of the never normal, I think we're going to see opportunities, but we're going to have to do things differently. So how do we do that? What is the recipe to actually shift gears and change the big tanker of a traditional company? Now, speaking of tankers and ships, I love this example. I know it's one of the TCS cases, but Damen is one of the biggest shipbuilders, in the Netherlands. A traditional company in a traditional business reinventing itself, using technology, using the power of innovation to actually completely rethink what they do. It's a wonderful example of such a phoenix phenomenon. And I believe that's going to happen in many markets. So what do you have to think about? 3 things. 1, strategy. How do you build strategy for that never normal? Well, I think you're going to have to be bold on the vision, but flexible on the details. And in this never normal, it's not enough to be essential. Many of you have, essential products or services for your customers. Great. But in the never normal, you have to go beyond essential. You have to think about how can we be even more relevant for our consumers in that never normal. The second thing is structuring. How do you build the structure for the never normal? How do you actually put innovation inside your organization to work? And I love the model of the hourglass. You all know what an hourglass is. The top of the hourglass, this is the wide lens that you need. This is picking up the signals. And then you need to experiment. You need to figure out what is relevant for you. You need to take that day after tomorrow and reduce the sauce. That top part is what I call sense and try. And I think that is very much in line with what TCS Pace is all about. It's figuring out what will be relevant for you in your sector, how to connect to the day after tomorrow, and then to figure out, experiment, try to make sure that it's exactly what you want. And then it falls into the bottom part of the hourglass. This is where you run and scale. Now, this is, of course, where the traditional business of TCS comes in very handy. But it's about connecting these two. It's about connecting the sense and try with the run and scale, the 0 to 1 with the 1 to N. Of course, this means also that you have to think about people. In every company, you have soldiers who love the bottom part of the hourglass, but you also need the artist, people who can see things that other people don't. You need to find out how to combine the soldiers and the artist. The final element here is the mindset. It's the culture. I came up with something which I call vaccine. It's an incorrectly spelled 6-letter word, but the V is for velocity. The world is moving faster. We will have to move faster. I love this quote from Andretti. If everything seems under control, you're just not going fast enough. For me, it was this hospital in Wuhan being built in 10 days. That's the raw speed of the never normal. But more important might be the A for agility. I love the analogy of the whitewater kayaker. It looks really scary in the beginning. The water could kill you, the rocks could crush you, but if you learn how to read the river, you can use the power of the river to your advantage. We will have to unlock the sea of creativity and why to fire on the eye of innovation, product, market, service, and model innovation. Look at a wonderful example like Disney, a phoenix that has transformed itself into a completely new platform player. But the last 2 are essential. The N is for networking. We don't live in the digital age. We live in the age of networks, of ecosystems and partnerships. And figuring out how to leverage that is going to give you speed. I love what McChrystal said. It takes a network to fight a network. And finally, it's the E for experimentation. How do you build in the psychological safety? I love what Mandela said. I never fail. I either win or learn. But if you want to increase innovation, you're going to have to lower the cost of failure. And I think this is exactly what TCS Pace is all about. You can't wait for the final HBR article anymore. This is no longer about lessons learned. It's about lessons learning. We will have to figure it out as we go along. And that means maybe the most important thing is up here, the reset. If you look at people, skills, minds, and hearts. Skills are going to change at light speed in the next couple of years. We're going to see new technologies, new platforms, new ideas, new business models, and we will have to continuously reskill our workforce. But even more important than just the raw skills is the mindset. How do we build a team that is passionately curious about the day after tomorrow, endlessly open-minded to figure out what the never normal is, forcefully resilient and vigorously creative, if we want to interpret that day after tomorrow? And in the end, it's about engagement. It's about heart set. The challenges are very real. How do we figure out how to focus not just on the individual, the me, but on the collective, the we? I get really inspired by this, and I'm sure you will be inspired both by Paceport itself in Amsterdam, but even more important, TCS Pace as a methodology in Europe. Some people still might not get it. Some people will still be afraid of actually what is happening there, but I am the perennial optimist. But we will have to turn this all the way up to 11. Let me end with my favorite quote from Maya Angelou. If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how truly amazing you can be. I wish you the very best in the never normal, and I would really wish that you can experience the possibilities of TCS Pace in Europe. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was Peter Hinssen. Thanks so much for that thought-provoking keynote. I think the elements of the more changes that are coming to us, and we have to prepare for more seismic shocks in this never normal, are quite suiting to the conversation we're going to have next. In the meantime, you have all filled in our poll. If you could describe the never normal in one word, what would it be? And actually, there was quite some interesting responses, I would say. Some we already heard, people mentioning Risha Garg does that, innovation. Rohit Verma says resilience. Mike Schavenmaker, opportunity. But I also like the word hyperconnectivity by Dinesh Stampi to describe the never normal. Mindset, life, fluid, helicopter shot. I need a bit more explanation on that. Maybe you can add that in the chat. Adaptability, humans, which is also a key element, I would say. And someone says epic. Now, that's maybe a good way to end this poll on the never normal. We're going to talk about resilience of companies in our next element. So let's go to our panel discussion, where you can also pose your questions again, and I'll introduce them into the panel discussion. So let's go to the TCS Pace talk. Yeah, so welcome to the TCS Pace talk on the role of innovation to build a sustainable future. And I have some esteemed guests with me. Please join me in welcoming K. Anand Krishnan. He is the CTO of TCS, and he is with us virtually through Zoom. Nice to have you here. At the table, we have Desiree van Gorp, Professor of International Business and Chair of the International Advisory Board at Nyenrode University, Business University. We have Christian Bornveld through Zoom with us. He is Chief Innovation and Technology Officer and Executive Board Member at ABN AMRO. Nice to have you with us, Christian. And at the table also we have Paulo Rodriguez, the Global CIO of SHV Holdings. Nice to have you with us. Maybe if we talk about the never normal, but also about how we work towards a sustainable future. Mr. Anand, how is TCS addressing the elements Peter Hinssen just described in adapting to this never normal, in trying to find ways to be resilient? If you see the challenges the world has as a stormy ocean, then how do you steer the boat that's rocking that ocean? Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around that wonderful address. So to answer your question, let me start with something Peter said at the end, which is the whole vaccine story. And that, I think, captures the spirit of TCS Pace and TCS Research and Innovation as well. We actually were driving our agenda with what we call the 5 V's of innovation. And I'll try to correlate the vaccine story as much as I can. The first is that to be innovative, we need to have a vision. And the never normal is a great way of articulating the vision that we require for the next 10 years. Mr. Samsom talked about the 20-30-year agenda and set the vision that we need to leave the world a better place for our children. Something like that has to be driving the vision of an individual, a company, a country, or a whole continent. The second is we need a vibrant culture. All the secret sauce of innovation is about the culture that is established. Maya Angelou's comment about, if you're not normal all the time, you don't know what you're missing or how good you can be, is that part of that vibrancy. I think it has to be that you run, you learn, you fail, you fall down. I mean, how are we as children? That's the spirit of vibrancy that we need to bring in to an innovation agenda. The third, given the range of challenges that Peter talked about in the never normal, I think we need a variety of things to worry about. It's no longer that I'm a retailer, I'm a bank, I'm an airline, I'm a manufacturer of automobiles. The world is not going to stay in those lanes, and that picture of the swimming lanes was a very nice one. 3 V's done. So visionary, vibrancy, variety. But the rubber hits the road, like the Americans say, when you have velocity. You have to try hundreds of things. You have to try them in a certain sequence. Certain things are for I won't say the full acronym, the SOY. Certain things have to fix the problems you already have today. Certain things are about tomorrow and the next year. And then there are things you have to worry about the future. And the 9370 is a good way of doing it, but it's not the right way, because you need that tension on the velocity with which you need to try many more things than you normally would do. And then finally, you have to be razor focused on value.
Yeah.
And Samsom also said this, unless you implement something at scale, the hourglass, it's not fun anymore. I mean, you had great ideas, but it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
So this is the way I would translate those great messages. You have to be visionary, you have to have a vibrant culture, you have to have a variety of things that you worry about, execute and try out ideas at high velocity, and constantly focus on value.
Yeah. And if you do that, it's all about the combination. Christian Bornfeld, a Chief Innovation Technology Officer at ABN AMRO. If we talk about the here and now and the past year, I think we've seen, well, I don't need to go too deep into that, but we know that it has been a strange, new, never normal that we are in the last year. What did that mean if we talk about all these words, velocity, resilience, adaptation? Can you make it concrete what it means for example, your strategy as a bank and your business? Because I can imagine there were some major things that have changed.
Yeah, I think we've all gone through very interesting sort of last 12 months or so. So I think we all share quite some of those experiences. I would say for a bank like ABN AMRO, I think we went through some phases. I think the first phase was very much around resilience, as was also talked about before. So when you get a shock that's so big to the system as the pandemic was, the first thing is sort of you step into survival mode. You see, can we actually continue to provide our services, the role that we play in society, and how can we help our clients through these very tough times? So there was certainly a period of existential crisis. Can we survive this? I think luckily we managed, and most organizations actually managed to adapt, and I think generally probably to adapt faster and better than they actually feared. So I think that was a good test of all of us. I think the next thing that you go through is then, okay, now we've survived the first crisis. How do we then continue to serve our clients? And no doubt the COVID situation with social distancing has been an enormous sort of accelerator to an existing trend of digitalization, and has meant that more and more people have had to sort of consume or engage with others through digital media. For us as banks, that's a lot about payments, sort of contactless payments, new technologies coming in there, people buying more online. But it's also about how we provide advice and how we keep the human connection still with our clients. So we've seen a big shift. So already before the crisis, we did about 50% of all our advisory meetings through video meetings. So we had quite some experience already.
Yeah.
But naturally, over the last year, that has sort of moved up to 90+%. But luckily for us, we also see that actually there are good things about this. Actually, clients are more satisfied with video meetings than face-to-face meetings now. And therefore, we also think that this shift is here, not just one-off, but it will continue to be with us for a long time. So we actually don't expect video meetings to fall below 80% ever again. So new things there. So last, I would probably mention that, of course, it introduces structural changes as well. The government support industries are changing. And the future work was also mentioned. So that's probably the last phase, is looking ahead as well. What does this mean in the longer term?
Yeah. So also maybe that's one thing we shouldn't forget, Diederik van Gorp, is to also evaluate the lessons that we have learned in this crisis. We've seen some things happening. Yeah. We've seen the video conferences increasing. There are new things happening. And at the same time, at Nijrode the Business University, I can imagine that your students also, whom you have seen mostly virtually also, maybe have had new questions popping up about, well, their careers or about how companies should adapt to crisis situation. Is that something you noticed?
Yeah.
That in this crisis, new questions come up?
Definitely. And I think technology is only a part of that. So I think thriving in a virtual environment has more emphasis now, and how to deal with that, and how to get the energy in the interaction, and so to increase the experience there. How are you doing that? How do you present yourself in a virtual environment? Because some of the job applications go also virtual. Onboarding goes virtual. What does it mean for young people, to onboard without having seen one single person alive? I mean, so those are questions. And I think importantly is a psychological safety. So what does an organization, how psychological safe do you feel in your group, in your peer group, but also in the organization you're going to work? Because there's a lot of pressure, also mental pressure on people, how to deal with this situation, and how safe do you feel to discuss that, and also to make failures in order to thrive innovation, because in the end we know that is what we need, right? We need people to fail fast and co-create. Like, this is why this center is
actually, your students have been here to do a TCS Pace methodology at TCS Paceport, and you describe all these virtual meetings, and then they were here together. Rianne, the Pace reporter, was here also for that, and they come here together. And what did you see that they missed and that they found here then?
Well, I think it's, we can talk about technology, you can explain it. But once you see it here, once you have the virtual reality, the augmented glasses, if you see that all and you look at how a factory, how you can actually examine the factory without, going there, but standing here. So all these experiences, and then around use cases. So they have looked at different industries, different companies, and really dive into how are these companies using it, and what is my role, their role in that process, and helping companies to implement some of these new technologies, which means that they need to be very much, I would say, continuously learn new things, because it's not like this is a one-time thing, right? It needs to continuously be addressed.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you look at the implementation in companies. And I think that is the beauty and the co-creation. Doing that in teams here, I mean, that has been
marvelous,
a different, different ballgame altogether.
I would like to introduce also Paulo Rodriguez, Global CIO of SHV Holdings. The biggest family business, I think, in the Netherlands, but active, of course, worldwide. I can imagine that in this pandemic, the sort of DNA of a family business is also something to take into account if you talk about resilience. Can you say something about that?
Absolutely, and I think as every organization in the world, we were not immune to the crisis itself. But one thing, as you said, we are proudly a family-owned business that exists for 125 years. So absolutely one thing that we have in our DNA is the resilience. So the company itself already saw many crises in the past. One thing that we know for sure, every crisis comes to an end. And that's not going to be the last one. And also we will face different challenges and crises in the world. One thing that I would say, we try to look for every crisis, including this, I would say, unique crisis that affected everyone last year, was the importance to really collaborate, to really look for crisis as an opportunity. Of course, we have, and we are still having hard times in certain of our companies, but being a kind of a conglomerate that has presence in multiple industries, in multiple geographics, that also has an opportunity, and we can leverage on that.
Maybe also I can imagine that if you talk about well, the new normal or the never normal. I mean, the question is also, and someone posted here, what does normal mean? And as a family business, you said we've been through it all, we've been through many crises. Risks exist, someone writes, and we kind of forgot it and thought that we could overcome and control everything. It's time to have a more realistic new normal, someone writes, taking into account our environment, surroundings, and remember the laws of physics. When I read that, I thought some people are under the impression that in times of crisis, you only focus on, let's say, the numbers, and not on the fundamental core of your business. But actually, what you say is you get thrown back on the core of your business.
Exactly. And we use it, actually, literally, we use it the year of 2020 to reunion again with the leadership of the company, to re-emphasize and reinforce the purpose of the company, which means courage to care for generations to come. What does it mean? Of course, we need to deal with the crisis, but we need to look for that crisis as just a stage, and we are looking for the long run. We are looking for the next generation. And through that kind of deeply, I would say, reflection about our purpose as a company, that also help us to keep the pace and the really sanity in times of everyone getting crazy. Oh, we need to survive, we need to do. We also need, but we also need to look what's come next. And I think also helped us through this exercise jointly with the multiple companies that we have in our family. We also strive what are really cares for us. Not only the generations, but the three main pillars: care for people, care for planet, and care for performance. Three of them equally important to the company.
Desiree?
Yeah, I think that purpose, that's what I also see with the students, that the purpose is so important in these times, also to keep people motivated, right? And you know, that they keep motivated, although it's a crisis, it's a tough time, but the purpose is keeping people really going. So I think that I've also seen that is a very important element.
Yeah, maybe Christian, if I go to you, if you look at ABN AMRO, keeping your employees, but also your clients motivated in times of crisis, because we're talking with respect to the goal we have, which is to create a more sustainable future. How do you use these times also to get people again on the same line to work towards this future? What's the most important thing ABN AMRO has done, or is the project right now to work towards this sustainable future?
Yeah, so I think there are many things I can mention, but let me first echo, I think the purpose is really something that ties people together when they are working in a more distributed environment. So for ABN AMRO, that's banking for better for generations to come. So a little bit similar to the other panelists. I think the purpose is really sort of gives that united sort of focus that a company needs during a time of crisis. For us, we've also looked at the crisis not just as something that's a threat, but actually also an opportunity to contribute to back to society and to refocus the company. And that's also very much around sustainability. So we sort of coined the phrase of being a personal bank in a digital age, thinking about how can we use this opportunity to build even deeper relationship with our clients in regards to using data, building on the trust we have, but also build a broader value proposition that goes beyond financial services and thinks about how financial service can make a difference in areas like sustainability going forward. But at the same time, acknowledging that given the crisis, but also the general trends that it's accelerating, we need to deliver financial services in very different ways around combining convenience and deep expertise. And I think also there, sort of emphasizing the human element, and that things are not just becoming digital. The human, the trust element is still there. And I think that's also extremely motivating for our employees. And we see it as very important also for our clients as well. So adding the human element to everything, even though things are becoming digital.
Maybe, Mr. Anand, if I go to you, because we're talking about businesses in a sort of singular commodity, but they're working in an ecosystem. And we have to try, and if you want to reach a sustainable future, we have to take our responsibility in that sense also. What role can innovation play in that sense to unlock the sort of exponential value, not only for your own business, but for the entire ecosystem? Can you say something about that?
So Tim, I think listening to my fellow panelists, what's becoming very clear in my mind is that there has to be an articulation of a larger purpose. And I like the way we just heard from Desiree and Pablo and Christian, that if we get that right purpose to inspire people, in TCS, our purpose statement is building greater futures through innovation and collective knowledge. So if we say that we are going to build better futures for ourselves, for our stakeholders, the world at large, That's inspiring. And then you can get it to a certain focus. So the whole innovation story starts with your purpose. The second part of it is that in today's complexity, the range of problems that people will have today and into the future, nobody can do this alone. So you must have that ecosystem thinking built into your philosophy. In the way I see this coming to life, there is, for example, Paceport Amsterdam. It is convening an ecosystem of university students, of startups, of our large customers, policymakers, TCS Research and Innovation, TCS business teams, other strategic partners to come together physically and virtually. So that's the first leg of the ecosystem. Then there are expanding corners of that ecosystem. There's a larger TCS Co-Innovation Network. There are other Paceports, Tokyo, New York, Toronto, Pittsburgh, and so on. So there is a larger network. And then there's the final big network of everybody else. I like to say, not all the smart people on the planet work in TCS. There's so many more smart people across the world. How do we make it attractive to come to Paceports and solve big problems? I mean, that's the challenge that I think we have in making sure that we are meaningful in this huge opportunity that lies ahead of us. The future is uncertain, but it's certainly going to be exciting in some ways.
Maybe Christian, before I go to Desiree. Christian, there's a question for you from one of our viewers that says, what is the top most sustainability initiative that ABN AMRO Bank is focusing on right now? Can you shortly say something about that?
Yeah, so generally sustainability is one of our sort of strategic pillars. So we try to actually inject sustainability in every dialogue we have with clients, because we believe helping clients through the shift towards sustainability is a key challenge that every client has, whether they are an individual homeowner or whether they're a large company. So from that point of view, you can say our initiative has been to empower our people by training all our staff in regards to having these deep dialogues with our clients, but also to find the right partnerships around us to actually allow them then to take action. And then, of course, we inject our value by financing it, apart from advising them on how to move on with that.
Would it be interesting to take them to TCS Paceport, the clients?
Yeah, exactly. But I think we actually work very closely with companies like, well, TCS is one of our close partners on inspiring us on how can we combine financial services with other services to really have this positive impact.
Yeah. Desiree, you wanted to respond to Anand, I think.
Yeah, because it's so interesting what Anand is saying about the ecosystems. And I think what is essential in the ecosystems is and bringing in the innovation. If you look at all the large issues that we have, the challenges that we have in the world, whether they are social, economical, or climate related, we can only solve them if we work together. So collaboration in ecosystems is essential, and it's even not a choice. And you have to give up your short benefits, be ready to give them up in order to have the longer term goals to achieve them together. And I think there are some beautiful examples of that where it worked and where companies are really investing in that. And I think this crisis may be an accelerator for that. And like you, Paulo, said, you've done some things. You've taken the crisis really to again look at the purpose and regroup around that. So in that sense, we can be very hopeful that these ecosystems really come to work and that we really collaborate in those.
If you just allow me to add on that, I cannot agree even more. And the one thing that we learned through that experience, that to build up this trustful environment, that you really trust in the ecosystem, to collaborate not only internally, but also with an external world. You need also to guide people, you need to encourage people, you need to take them by hand, because that doesn't come with a switch. No. You know, you need to really encourage, you need to create an environment that people feel empowered to collaborate, empowered to be open-minded. And that takes time. That should be part of our operating model, not something that we're just going to do as a project, and now let's see what comes next.
It needs to be anchored, right?
It should be anchored.
Anchored
exactly.
really in your organization.
But how do you make sure? Because at the one hand, we want space for experimentation. We want space for failure, to try again. And at the same time, we feel an urge, we feel a need. We heard Diederik Samsom at the beginning of say, by 2050, we need to have this done in Europe. How do you take people along that road that at the one time they feel the urge, the speed, the necessity, and at the other time still feel the sort of space to maybe look in another direction, maybe try a different approach?
I think that also comes again to the play, the importance to have really a purpose. That is the dot in the horizon, that's the direction that we want to go. But at the same time, crisis created the opportunity for us to strive and to really work hard to get things done quickly. And some examples that we really see, and it was, I would say, instrumental to SHV in that journey, in that crisis itself, was that we also look for sustainability and innovation together. Not only innovation as well, we are looking for the moonshot, something that we want to discover a new revenue stream. That's also important, that's also innovation, but also we can take innovation and methodology like Paceport they are having in an ecosystem to drive and to really tackle problems that is short term. So how really to look for the low-hanging fruits in an innovative way. So this balance, the crisis help us to urge and say, you know, you're still with the ambition to go to that direction. That's the dot in the horizon, but you can use the same kind of thinking to the short term as well.
And maybe it's nice to say SHV Holdings does more than energy, so that's good to there's also retail, there's infrastructure, there are many things. But actually this week we saw a solar
Great news, yeah. That was a kind of good coincidence. We invested from SHV Holdings, which also is not common. Normally, we have in a private equity company, have the operating companies that strive or do the front runner. This time is so important also after this whole purpose reinforcement. We decided to invest quite a big amount of money in the Lightyear, which is a solar car. Basically, it's not even focused on the battery. They are again trying to disrupt the electric car industry to find how we can really produce cars with a solar roof in the cars to get range of 7 kilometers and so on. And at the same time, SHV Energy, because they also look for the future energy generation, so bio LPG. LPG itself is already much more renewable and sustainable than the oil fuel based purely. We are just announcing a joint venture with one of the competitors, UGI, to really invest in a new, I would say, low carbon
So these are concrete steps.
Bold steps.
Christian, maybe if I go to you, because we're talking about, and maybe some people get the idea that we're only talking about really large enterprises, but we're also talking about small and medium-sized enterprises, I would say, to take along in this route towards a more sustainable future. How would you advise SMEs in that sense to embrace this innovation and sustainability, because they might not have that big a team to talk about the purpose statement, but want to have the same feeling?
Yeah, so of course SMEs remain sort of the growth engine, I think, in most economies, especially around Europe. So from that point of view, it's an extremely important sector. We work a lot with SMEs as well that have great ideas on how to grow their businesses, but basically don't have necessarily the time or the mind space necessarily to do it. So often what they value is that we work with them. Well, first of all, we try to zoom out and forget a little bit about banking for just a little bit of time and think about what are the problems that they are actually facing in their day-to-day life. And then to the point of ecosystems, we start thinking about how can we pull together other companies that can help them solve that problem. So instead of just thinking about how can we help them as a bank, we think about how can we, together with an energy company, together with accounting software or information security solutions, or whatever else keeps these SMEs awake at night, how can we help them solve those things so they can focus even more on growing their business and have the energy to think about the next stage and the next stage, so they can be the innovative engine that will give us the economic growth that we need for the future. So.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Before going to Anand, Desiree?
Yeah, just quickly. So I see that a lot of students also start their own company, and right from the beginning they take sustainable, in a sustainable approach. So I just have this student who started a jewelry line, and she right from the beginning.
You're wearing it right now.
Yes, I'm wearing it.
Ah, that's nice.
And she started right from the beginning looking at giving access to markets to people who are in Argentina in this case, who normally don't have access, and to educate young people to become actually a jewelry person. So right from the beginning. So I think it's there. It's about education, and it's about this purpose. Why it's so.
But are you in that sense saying that we can talk about trying to create a purpose, but if you look at the generation that's coming, the purpose is baked in there towards sustainability and towards...
I think the realization that you are not just there to sell, in this case, the jewelry, but that you have actually a responsibility to take others along, and to, in this case, it's about education and giving others access to market. I think it's there, and I just started with my students an alumni a foundation, Young and Bold, where really is looked at how can you make the world a better place by throwing in innovation, by helping companies that perhaps do not have, or people that do not have the access to a network, how to make it bigger, how to make small acts, how to make them bigger.
Yeah. I think, Anand, if I look at you, this is also one of the things that TCS Pace does, right, in Europe, to see how we can make this drive, this urge, and make it bigger. At the same time, if we look at sustainability, it's a hot topic among corporates and other institutions. But what would be like a realistic timeline to see sustainability become a sort of universal, ubiquitous business objective across the business world? Are you positive about that?
Absolutely. In fact, the whole theme and thinking of corporates across the world that I'm privileged to work with, Christian and I have had lots of conversations on this, for example, and Pablo, I look forward to talking to you as well. The purpose that sustainability is a here and now challenge, and there isn't that much time to solve it, is very clear. A lot of us are publishing our own timetables and saying by 2025 we'll do this, 2030 we'll do this, 2040 we'll be here, and so on. We're trying to beat that 2050 deadline. That's of course there. But if we are able to link this to the respective industries that we're in, and coming back to the point that in an ecosystem, everybody has to pull together. Not enough if TCS says, I'm an IT company, I can address the data center energy, or I can address the direct IT impact of sustainability, and I'm finished. That's not doing justice. That's maybe 5%, 10% of the overall challenge. The mindset that I'm encouraging all my teams in research and innovation to do, how do we help the 90% problem? How do we help agriculture? How do we help services industries? How do we help manufacturing industries? How do we allow that culture, grassroots culture, to be tapped, the creativity and the energy? There's so much more that IT can do rather than just saying, okay, I'm finished. I've got good green data centers. That's ignoring the big opportunity.
Yeah. I think it's also maybe to conclude, Christian, if I look at the role of the Chief Technology Officer, and I know you do a lot more, it's also maybe that we've learned in this crisis that actually the root fruit technology opens a whole new space of all these big questions popping in, actually are an integral part of what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah, but I would say generally, whether it's technology or sustainability, I think they are so anchored now, and people see so many opportunities that I feel not just as companies or individuals, but as society is really coming together around this. And I feel a lot of energy from all the creativity that it's spurring. So I'm very positive about the future, even though that there are obviously challenges we need to solve together.
Yeah. And that's because we live in a never normal, we learned. I thought it was great working on a sort of small ecosystem with the four of you. I really hope also, Christian, that you're coming soon to TCS Paceport in Amsterdam to show you around here. And for now, I really thought it was a thought-provoking discussion. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Christian. Thanks, Paulo. Thanks, Desiree. And actually now it's time to wrap up today's session. Thank you, everyone, for this amazing TCS Pace talk and for the entire session. I think we could have gone on for hours, but I can imagine we all have also busy schedules to attend to. I hope you enjoyed watching the show, and there's such interesting and important topics, and I hope we touched upon the words resilience, talent, ecosystem, collaboration, velocity, and the other 4 V's Anand described. I heard there will be many more editions coming of TCS Pace Talk. And Anand, may I ask you to formally close today's event and say a few words reflecting on today?
Tim, what a fantastic launch to Paceport Amsterdam. I'd really like to thank you first for anchoring this. Thank all our speakers. It's so wonderful to hear such profound thoughts at this time and juncture in a never normal world, and the concepts that we have heard, solidarity, innovation, the ability for us to come together for a grand challenge like sustainability, the role of ecosystems, the ability for us to try things, fail fast, don't be afraid, try again, and success will come. The culture part, all of these, I think, exemplify the spirit of Pace once more, thank you all for this wonderful start, and Paceport Amsterdam will live up to your expectations.
Well, and with that closing word, that's all from us today. Echoing Anand's words, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Stay safe. We look forward to welcoming you, hopefully soon, at the office in person very soon. And for more context, you can explore the Content Hub in the online environment you're in right now, or take the virtual tour. I would really urge you to do that. I think it's an amazing tour. And for now, I wish you all the best and have a great day. Bye.